You're tuned to Evergreen Media Network. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the podcast Patient Partners. Also, we are on Spreaker as well, and then all of the platforms, Deezer, Spotify, all of those. Look us up on that. Jeannie Roller is my co-host. Jeannie, my tongue's tied today. We're talking about avenues for alternative medicine when you get harmed in the medical arena, which you and I both have sought out, because we didn't want to go back, and we were gun shy, if you will, and I don't want to use the word, we were medical shy, if you will. And we didn't want to jump back into what we thought was going to be like a resurgence of whatever, the PTSD and all this kind of stuff that we're dealing with. So I sought out, I ripped my shoulder, and I went to an orthopedic surgeon because I blindly, just went back. And then I thought, well, what am I doing here? And the care, it was a different doctor from what the poor care I had was originally, or the harmed care that I had originally. And it was like the same verbiage. And I'm like, the person doesn't care and blah, 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 blah kind of thing. And it's just a cog in the wheel, and it's up, 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 sign this, sign that, sign this. And I was like, you know what? No. So I went to his recommendation of physical therapy, and it helped a lot instantly because I was in serious pain. And then I went further with people's suggestions, and I went to acupuncture. And when I went to the acupuncture, now I know that you have to pay that out of pocket, but literally my shoulder was ripped. I don't know what the medical terminology of it is. I couldn't quote it if I wanted to. And then in the acupuncture, which I went probably 5, 6, 7 times, so it wasn't an awful lot of times. It was like twice a week, and I did it for like a month or a month and a half, 6 weeks. And with that, they gave me different exercises. So like more Eastern medicine kind of exercises, which were way different than the physical therapy ones I got from the traditional medicine. And that's what I did. And I religiously did the exercises, and I healed my shoulder. And to the point where I had gone to another orthopedic surgeon who I really, really liked. She was very decent, but I was in the middle of doing the acupuncture and all these exercises, but I wanted her second opinion as well. And she's like, well, whatever you feel comfortable with, go with it, but I'm thinking you're going to need surgery, and I never did. And to this day, she says, so that was like 5, 6 years ago. To this day, she's like, I cannot believe the fabulous results you got from that. And I'm like, I mean, you've seen the x-rays, you've seen the MRIs. I mean, you know that it's fixed. And she's like, yeah, but it's amazing that it works. So, I mean, things like that. And it wasn't that much money, Jeannie. It was probably a couple $100, maybe $300. But I did it religiously. I did it every time they told me about this is what, you have to do. So I know that you've had a lot of success too. And that's not the only thing that I've had success with. I've had other things too. So for the listeners, I mean, I would get as many as opinions if you feel comfortable with. I know a lot of the insurances now will let you have at least 2 opinions, maybe 3 opinions, certainly for surgeries and more serious situations. But that worked for me, and there's other things that have worked for me, too, in other instances. I'm not going to drone on about it, but I know it has for you as well, Jeannie.
Yeah. Well, it's our opinion that my husband was medically assaulted because they were in disbelief, and they actually seemed a little bit angry that he wasn't on no prescription medicines at his advanced age. And so the procedure that they assaulted him with was stenting. And with stents, you have to take certain types of medicine, which he told them flat out he wouldn't take it in the beginning. So they knew that. So we have done a lot of research, mostly me, and he is not taking those medicines. We have found out different combination of supplements will keep his cholesterol within limits, keep the inflammation down, because we have regular blood tests done to test for all those things. And we have found this kind of, sweet spot in doing all that. So it takes a lot of work, as you said.
It does.
It takes some money because it's expensive. I mean, you can get a refill of a statin for like $3 a month.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple bucks.
Yeah. So, but he wasn't willing to take that, and statins we've done the research. our opinion is the dangers that they can cause, like kidney failure. They can cause severe mental incapabilities. So we weren't willing to go through that. They can cause muscle damage.
Right. Yeah.
So we said no.
Yeah.
We did our own research, and he's doing fine.
Yeah. You know what? So we're not medical people. These are our opinions. We're not lawyers. Certainly we're not doctors, any of that kind of thing. But these things that we found, some of it's common sense. Some of it is a lot of research. I mean, one of the things that I have done, and I've stepped up, and everyone should do this. And I mean, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I mean, I'm, older or whatever. I do as much exercise as I possibly can. Even in Florida heat, I'm outside doing, not to the point that I'm being stupid or anything like that, but I try to keep totally active, which is one of the biggest things. And I find my cholesterol with that does really well. And I think doctors will tell you that anyway. Some of this stuff you can just do it yourself. But you wanted to also mention, Jeannie, we were talking on another podcast about when you do run into harm, and that's why you and I both turned to alternative medicines even more prevalently than we probably had done in the past. I know personally for myself, that's why I did it. And one of the things that, we want to mention, too, when you do get harmed, hopefully you never do, but if you do get harmed in the medical setting, in the traditional medical setting facility and all that, when you sign paperwork, if you can get to that point, and they're going to say that they're going to investigate or whatever, a lot of that stuff, investigation is internal. So that's another thing that kind of really is so off-putting, and that's not even a strong enough word. It was in my case. When I realized that that's what it was. In other words, I'm saying in my case, in my opinion, it was a kangaroo court. They were going to shuffle the papers however. They were going to shuffle the papers, deal the cards, whatever they're going to do. But they were going to affect the outcome that they wanted to affect, regardless of what my personal truth I felt was. So, wow. So keep that in mind, too, if you do get to a point. I mean, no matter what avenue you go, there's a lot of legwork that you have to do if you're, lucky enough to get somebody to listen to you when this stuff has happened to you. I mean, I pray that you do find that because it eases your mind. And really, that's all we wanted was to have our minds eased and to know that this wasn't going to happen to someone else. And neither of that happened. We had to work on it, so specifically in other avenues that we couldn't rely on what we thought that we could as the mainstream avenue, if you will, Jeannie.
Right. And one thing I want to mention too, Cindy, is earlier I was reading an account from somebody that said that they didn't give verbal consent for a specific test. And they questioned that. And of course, the doctor, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but verbal consent is very hard to prove that the doctor didn't ask you and get your verbal consent because it's always their word holds more weight than your word. Yeah. It seems like it's always like that. So in our investigation, I have the feeling that they went and said, did you guys do this to him? And they, no, of course not. Okay. Yeah. Investigation over.
Right. Yeah.
That is the type of investigation that I feel that was done. And I feel it's probably done quite a bit because their word seems to hold more weight than the people who have been injured. Word.
I think to be the devil's advocate in a lot of instances, this is their arena. And supposedly, they're schooled to the utmost. Most people and, doctors or whatever, they go to school forever and ever and ever. So you have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, somebody that's their profession. You got to give them that leeway and that, that avenue or whatever. But it's when yourself things had happened that you wanted it to be adjusted. Neither you and I, we only have a couple of seconds left. I'll do this real quick. Wanted to sue anybody. We just wanted to know that something was going to get fixed and that we were going to be heard, and we weren't. We were stymied and stifled. And really at the end of the day, that's everyone's loss because learning could have happened and maybe, things could have been adjusted. So, and to make it a better experience going forward. On that note, stay listening to Evergreen Media Network.